Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm making this video in response to the recent report that has come out of Ontario regarding the elderly homes, abuse, mistreatment, and a lot of other things. Essentially, I'm going to let it play and I'll probably make a few comments here and there. Thank you for watching.
Out about the situation in these 5 long-term care homes. We should warn our viewers that the details you're going to provide are disturbing.
Yeah. They are, and there's pages of them. I mean, the report is a Canadian Armed Forces report that lists observation after observation, specific instances of things they saw, general things they saw that happened more frequently in terms of just like an isolated incident. We're talking, I've got a list here, cockroaches, bug infestations, little or no disinfectant of the facilities, which is bad, never mind that we're in COVID, but especially bad during COVID. Soiled residents, so basically residents not being changed or brought to the bathroom in time, and therefore they're sitting in perhaps diapers for long periods of time without getting changed. There was an incident of, or more than one incident of forceful feeding that led to actual choking and aspiration. They also talk about patients going weeks unbathed, that the staff there are untrained, or there's a lack of training, that there's a fear of using necessary supplies because they know there's a cost associated.
Okay, let me just stop it there. That's very important to keep in mind. That's a piece of evidence that those healthcare workers in Ontario are not only undersupplied, but that they don't have a guarantee of safety. And the result is that they manage to recuse themselves from their responsibility and their work, and they actually let the whole thing fall apart and put on the shoulders of, say, amateurs or people that came out of school who are desperate for money, and they're not actually fully trained or qualified, or they're volunteering. And those are the people that went in after they had walked away. I'm talking about the healthcare workers, to pick up the pieces and manage the situation. I hope that's not too much for you to unpack. The foremost piece of evidence, you look at how extreme the management of those nursing homes have fallen apart. How it's not even, it's like nobody's there. How could they let the situation get to bug infestation and all those abuses on their clients? My thinking is that it'll end in a lawsuit, but never mind that. Several lawsuits. So now you take apart what happened. I'm going to say that the healthcare workers are undersupplied, underprotected, and that is the failure of course, the Ford government, but also the previous administration under Kathleen Wynne, since it's probably been going on a long time, and it's unclear how much Ford was actually aware of it. And also the federal government, because I've been hearing about these abuses in nursing homes for like the past 3 or 4 months. Like there's many news articles on the web that you could find talking about abuses going on in the nursing home, people with like nurses, healthcare practitioners, if you will, that are trying to avoid going to work in order not to get sick. And that's the clearest argument you've got to prove that the Trudeau government isn't actually protecting its healthcare workers. The fact that the military has to go in and actually analyze the situation and then report it, and the fact that that report got out, that's key. So let's continue. There's a lot of information to cover.
With those supplies, at least in one home, there was no crash cart, so nothing to help if someone
so
goes
they could die potentially.
Expired medication, reuse of syringes, which is especially troubling. The list really does go on and on.
Reuse of
and it
syringes.
is very disturbing. And as you mentioned, this is in 5.
Yes, sorry. Patients,
go ahead.
Patients with COVID, not isolated, wandering around. They were left in the same rooms as residents. without the virus.
Yep, there you go. So you see
the
that
report
they're
says that some
not
residents
even,
were
it's
crying
like nobody is actually handling the situation. They're just left to fend for themselves, the elderly.
for help for as long as 2 hours before staff responded.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah,
Just
it
terrible.
really it is. When they say it's troubling or disturbing, that I feel like that doesn't quite even capture it when you read this report. It's in 5 Ontario homes, but as Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, just said, he suspects that these problems are certainly beyond those 5 homes. We also know that the Armed Forces has been asked and has been working in 25 Quebec homes, and we are hearing that there will be a report coming out about those homes as well from the military, although we're told perhaps it's not quite as severe as what they saw in the Ontario homes, although we do already know that there has been problems highlighted in the Quebec homes during this crisis, because the government had to actually go into one home when staff basically just left because of their fear of COVID, and residents were left completely unattended.
Home on the West Island,
Yeah, to me, this problem goes much deeper than just COVID. I've had some experience in the nursing home, and I can tell you there's a kind of dispassionate attitude towards clients. You send your elderly loved one to the nursing home thinking that they'll get the best care, but really those people are not actually allowed to become close to your loved ones. It's a very dispassionate role in my estimation, and they do a lot for the clients, but they don't do anything to let them live, let's say. And what I mean by that is your mental health and your physical health are tied together. They'll look after the body, but they won't look after the spirit of those people. So in order to live, you kind of have to have a drive to live. And there's nothing that exists in the nursing home like that. You go there to die. They'll do whatever they can to make you somewhat comfortable. But the atmosphere is the tone for me is quite dark. It's quite a terrible place. And the fact that COVID can go out of hand like this is but a sign that it shows you, the public, that it's the healthcare workers must look after their own well-being before they can care for their clients. You know what I mean? If you're on the front lines and you're not protected as well as you should be, you're an educated in health, you know something about the transmission of germs, you're not going to show up if you think that you're going to be at risk. Okay, so it's pretty simple to understand. The signs that you see here, like that they let the things fall apart that badly, that's the failure of healthcare workers and their management. So I'll just continue because there's lots of stuff that they talk about.
Yes. So I mean, it's not like we don't know that there are problems, and in fact, that is a constant question that comes up for Doug Ford and the Premier of Quebec as well.
And the previous administration as well.
These are really disturbing specifics, but it's not like we didn't know for years that there were problems in these long-term care homes.
And we should point out that, we talk about the 5 because the Canadian Armed Forces were asked to help in 5 long-term care homes in Ontario. So those are the 5 where they observed these problems. So it doesn't mean that it's just happening in 5, as you were pointing out. It's just that they can only report on what they saw. And what's incredible about this, Karina, is they felt the need, the military felt a need, and the report is here, so it's all public, felt the need to put pen to paper and to say, this is really disturbing. You need to know about this. The public needs to know about this.
Yeah, I would be curious to figure out why the military took an interest. Why were they commanded? Was there some military higher up that actually managed to pass through, or a committee that passed through that saw it and then reported it to whomever that sent in the military? It's unclear. What else is unclear is that they let it go on for so long.
Absolutely. And, when you talk about just the 5, yes, that's where they were observing, but we also know CBC, our colleagues have done reports just recently in April about how in Ontario, I think it was like 9 out of the 626 homes in the province in 2019 got in-person inspections. So and that's,
Yeah, and here's the
unbelievable that
difference
basically
with
majority-
Ford and Wynne. Wynne will never admit, Kathleen Wynne will never admit that she was wrong, and Ford is asking the military to keep investigating. That means he's honest. No responsible government, no irresponsible government will push for the constant scrutinization. No, Ford wants to get at the bottom of the matter and correct it, obviously. And this is not to be laid at the feet of Doug Ford only. This is to be laid at the feet of Kathleen Wynne, the previous premier that let things get out of hand, and Justin Trudeau, because his so-called bailouts don't do anything to actually help the situation. You'll see later his generic answer for the press, of course.
Homes did not get any kind of in-person inspection. And so we know that obviously has to get fixed. But it's not like inspections were high, the year before, but it has consistently dropped off over the years.
And we're going to get into that with
COVID allowed to
Toronto
wander
reporter
freely.
soon, because there were lots of questions to Doug Ford about, well, wait a second, you've been premier for a couple of years.
Yep, that's not that long.
You're sort of
That's a
talking about
relatively
how
short
appalling
period
all
of time
this
to
is,
handle all the issues.
There's this whole question of accountability. Well, who's accountable? When different governments are in power at different times. But once you're
And
in
Andrew,
for
can
a-
I actually
yeah, go ahead.
can I actually point out, I remember covering the 2007 Ontario provincial election, and this was a major election issue
So it goes
during
back.
that campaign. That's many years ago. It goes back. I mean,
Yeah.
subsequent governments have failed to deal with this issue.
So
Yeah.
what did the Prime Minister say about the findings earlier today?
It's not really relevant.
Yes, so Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also calling the report very disturbing, saying that he read it in full yesterday.
I doubt it.
And he was asked how he felt when he read this report. This is what he said.
On reading the deeply disturbing report, I had obviously a range of emotions of anger, of sadness, of frustration, of
This guy's a
grief.
robot.
It is extremely troubling. And as I've said from the very beginning of this, we need to do a better job of supporting our seniors in long-term care right across
Job
the
that
country
you
through
knew
this
you had to
pandemic
do already.
and beyond.
Now, you could say I blame him quite a lot, but I do, because they're borrowing so much money that this shouldn't be an issue. You're talking about healthcare professionals reusing stuff. Okay, why on earth would they be reusing stuff if it wasn't troublesome to get and resupply the stuff in the first place? Syringes and cleaning gear and suits and mask, ventilator, you name it, gloves. It's hard to get in this country. Why? What for? Right? The reason is the government. The government gave them away. The government is not releasing them to the public. We have to wait and wait and wait for resupply for medical equipment. It's so pathetic. That's why Trudeau's words don't hold weight with me. Obviously, how much the Prime Minister is aware of is probably not that much, since he's only a mouthpiece. But, the abuses come from the top. That's what I'm trying to point out. It's the healthcare professionals that you can lay blame at their feet, sure, certainly. But, the fact that they're poorly managed and coordinated and poorly supplied, that's another indication of how that government has failed us. And at least Ford is now trying to correct the situation, because, you could say it's political, but I think he's actually disturbed by it.
Now, long-term care homes are under provincial jurisdiction. So obviously lots of questions to the federal government. Okay, so what can you do to help? Perhaps obviously money could be the support that they're offering. Obviously if we're understaffed and people aren't being paid enough and there aren't good standards.
That's
in the home,
another one. Yeah, that was another one. They're not paid enough.
Money could make a difference.
Yeah.
But really also questions about what the future of long-term care
I
will
think Trudeau actually cut their bonus. There's some kind of healthcare bonus for working. I think it was time and a half or something, almost like holiday pay. But not precisely. They were given incentive, and that incentive was cut, I think, a month ago.
be in the country. Perhaps it should, Doug Ford talking about perhaps we need standards across the country, not just in one province. Well, does that mean it would start to come under the Canada Health Act, which would then put it under federal jurisdiction in that way? What's the future of for-profit long-term care homes? Is that a model that should continue? And certainly the province of Ontario asking for money to do a deeper dive, but Doug Ford also being asked, well, we kind of already know what some of the problems and fixes could be, what could be done more immediately. And the health minister for Canada was also, Patty Hajdu, was asked about that, and she was quite vague. We'll give support that we can and money and perhaps staff. I mean, we've obviously already put the armed forces in, but it's not quite clear how the provinces and the federal government could come together to solve the problem when you have these jurisdictions.
It's always vague, and she is actually one of the most responsible, because Hajdu is supposed to be overseeing. She should be very in-depth, entrenched in the knowledge of how to solve the issue, and she's not. She's giving a political non-committal answer, which means she doesn't know enough, or she's not saying what she knows. So that's another, like, the government dwells in Ontario, right? So how could it go under the radar? It's like they're in one place, It's not as though they're completely ignorant, right?
But everyone agreeing that something has to be done. And a lot of people arguing also it shouldn't have had to come to this point with a military report for people vowing for change.
To me, it's reprehensible. Cockroaches, patients left in soiled diapers for God knows how long. Even for my little boy, it's he doesn't even like to be left with a dirty diaper for more than 10 minutes, even 5 minutes, he'll cry. It's like, I can't imagine the amount of embarrassment and just the deep amount of, it must be so humiliating, Maybe some of these people have dementia or whatnot, Alzheimer's, that they don't even remember where they are. It's just absolutely terrible. But no, I don't want to give Ford too much credit, because, I mean, he should be looking into that very carefully, and I think he wasn't. He might have been distracted with the rest of the political preoccupations in his mind. But this is... There must be punishment for people that let this thing go too far. Criminal punishment, fines, perhaps even jail time for the ones that let it go that bad. I understand their motivation, but again, it is a crime to treat human beings terribly like this in what I would call a free society, or so we're told. It's as if they don't value human life, human beings, even in the elderly people who once carried this country. That's disgusting behavior. Please comment below what you think. I appreciate your viewing. If you would like, subscribe. If you like this video, subscribe. Thank you again for watching.